Hello, everyone. I know it's been a couple of weeks, and I apologize that I haven't put up a video. For those of you that have had me before, you know that I try to regularly do that, put up little vignettes, lecture vignettes. But for some reason, summer is just like getting away from me. It must just be summer. Also, I've been moving, so this is like my house that I have here. So I've been moving, and it's been kind of insane and hectic. And not only that, I felt like the notes and the PowerPoints from the past couple of modules were pretty robust. And so I think that all the content and information that you gained just from doing all the readings provided you with an ample amount of information to further your learning and understanding of career counseling. Everybody's doing a really great job in the discussion boards. I'm encouraged by your involvement and how you are going back and forth and discussing things with each other. So keep it up. That's great. We're about halfway through the summer here. And we've had a couple of assignments. Do the assessment critique. I'm going to try to get that graded as soon as possible. I'm also teaching a 6-week on-campus ethics class for the counseling department or the counseling program, the clinical mental health program that's wrapping up next week. So I've got just like a backload of papers that I'm grading for both classes. So if it takes me a minute to get those graded, that's why. But my hope is to have the critique assessment graded before the ONET case study is due. So if you haven't been on yet, I went ahead and created on the left side of eCampus in the course content area an assignment box so that it's not kind of built into each module anymore. Your assignments are right there. So I again apologize that the rubric wasn't there for the ONET case study assignment. It's up there now, so you should be able to view that. If you have any questions, please let me know. And I think that's it. I hope everybody has a good time, but this is maybe the nerd coming out of me, I suppose, but I like ONET. Like I like doing ONET interest inventories. It's not the perfect system out there, but I come from an era where we did use the Dictionary of Occupational Titles, the DOT, which was awful. And so in comparison, ONET is like, wow, this is amazing. But I do like always doing the labor market surveys, and I always enjoyed that part of my job as a rehabilitation counselor, even though we're talking about career counseling here. Certainly we're using these tools in rehab counseling settings as well. And so that brings me to my topic of technology, and that's what we're focusing on for this module. And so we're looking at different types of the computer-assisted career guidance systems that are out there. And these systems have been around for a while. I mean, they've really been, for my entire lifetime, I guess, since the early 80s. So there's been a lot of research done on these tools that we can have in our toolkit as counselors in general, as career counselors more specifically. The more well-known systems are Discover, Sigi, which is now like Sigi 3 that I most recently looked up. I think Sigi Plus might have just disappeared. I'm not really sure, so I need to do a little bit more searching, but I couldn't find Sigi Plus. I was just able to find Sigi 3. All the systems are useful. They do have, there are pros and cons to using these systems, obviously. I mean, one thing that we just can't ignore is that confidentiality needs to be addressed when we're utilizing this technology or any technology with a client that we're working with. And of course, you're going to find out more about this in your ethics class when you get to that point and take it. But there's not a way for us to guarantee confidentiality when we're taking people outside of kind of that one-on-one interaction, that engagement that we have with them. So if we are utilizing these computer-assisted career guidance tools, and they're putting in their email as part of a login system or a way to communicate to get their results, however they're getting their results if they're not immediate. I mean, that certainly is opening up for additional potential to have confidentiality breached. So it's important that we're addressing this in any kind of disclosure statement, informed consent that we're having our client sign. And typically, you're going to be having a conversation with your client in addition to that to explain that if you are using a system that is not your system, it's not proprietary to you, that and if they're inputting information about themselves, that to a certain degree we can't, if confidentiality is breached, it's not breached by us necessarily, it's breached by the system. So we have to make sure that we're doing what we can, which includes making sure the programs are encrypted, making sure our clients know to change passwords frequently when they're accessing this information, making sure they're not, like leaving passwords on a piece of paper next to their computer, things of that nature. But not unlike what we're going to be telling clients in general around when we're thinking about utilizing technology in other ways, whether it's that they're communicating with us through video chat or video conferencing and distance counseling, or even email communication in general, text communication, things like that. This is just kind of lumped into all of that when we're thinking about limits to confidentiality and use of technology in general. Some advantages of these computer-assisted career guidance systems are obviously that people in general in this country have become more computer literate, regardless of demographics and age range anymore. We're seeing even older adults are familiar with computers and how to use computers effectively. I would argue that access to technology is still limited depending on where you live. In particular, thinking about West Virginia and rural parts of West Virginia, yes, somebody might have a computer, and maybe their internet access is limited because it's rural and because they live in a mountainous range. And so that can be said for other areas of the country too. So it's important that if we're thinking about using these CACG systems, that we are focusing our attention on whether or not it's going to be an effective use of the tool for the client that we're considering recommending it for. So typically, if somebody is able to access the internet, is able to access the computer, these programs seem relatively intuitive, as you all have found in taking some of these assessments yourself. So going step by step and kind of clicking on a button is not terribly difficult for people anymore, but still we may need to provide some guidance to our clients if they need it, without, of course, encroaching on the reliability and validity of the assessment itself. But I digress. So the benefit for me personally in the work that I've done is that whenever I was working for Cigna and doing vocational rehab counseling, everything I was doing was at a distance. So it was great for me to have these tools available that I could refer my clients to, that they could do at home in their own time. I could use it as a homework assignment, and then the next time I would meet, quote unquote, with my clients, I would say, hey, did you take the assessment? What did it say? Let's talk about it a little bit more. Or, on the flip side of it, on my end, I'd be doing a labor market survey. And so we kind of both be working to try to figure out what the specific career goal would be for my client based on all these other factors. So I found them to be really useful. Because they've been around for so long. Again, there's been a lot of research around the use of like Discover and Siggy, and they're relatively, I guess across the board, people are just understanding. Yep, they work for people. they're a good career computer assisted guidance system. So there are other things to consider, of course, when you're looking at some of these tools that can be utilized. If they're new, you definitely want to do the research into the tool itself to see if it was just put out, if it's from a valid resource, if there's other things to consider. So if there's software applications, do you need to download them? Does the client have the capability to do this? Do people need to be trained in how to utilize the technology, utilize the tools, and then on the other side of it, work with the client so that they can inform the client about what all this information means once somebody has gone through like an assessment process. So things to consider in terms of access, and I did want to work this in because we're thinking about technology and we're thinking about rehab counseling. We should be thinking about whether or not these CACG systems are accessible to all of our clients. So we might need to consider whether a client is needing a screen magnification software application or a screen reading software application. If we have these systems within our workspace and people are coming in, our clients are there and utilizing these systems, during their, time with us, it may be that the agency that we're working for, the rehab agency, has these types of AT available for clients to use. And certainly there are a number of different alternative input devices out there, whether it be, utilizing a different mouse or different keyboard, things of that nature. Another important consideration when using computer assisted career guidance systems is that you want to make sure that the client, the individual that you're asking to explore on the system, is able to developmentally understand what they're doing, the purpose of it, or if they need a little bit more guidance through the process, then you're able to give that to them appropriately. You can check accessibility yourself of some of these systems, again, if your agency hasn't already done this and you don't know the limitations. But our computers now have built-in screen readers, so if you're on if it's an internet-based CACG, then you can go on and turn on the reader view and see if it is adequately reading all the information on the page. You could test it out with the screen magnification that's built in our control panels. That's where you find the accessibility features. So you can test this all out on your own computer if you're thinking about using the system. Or you can employ one of these outside resources for an accessibility check. I think Jennifer mentioned in the last week's discussion about WebAIM, that third bullet that I have on the final slide, slide 12 of this week's PowerPoint. That's a great resource to do some of these checks. The Web Accessibility Institute and Web Accessibility Checker. The Web Accessibility Checker is just an online quick thing, so you can just put in the HTML or HTTPS code, like the actual website, and it'll kind of provide a list of how it's accessible or not accessible. What do you do after that? Well, it's knowledge, right? I mean, you're not developing the computer, the CACG system itself, so you're just knowledgeable about the limitations that the actual system has, and then you can work with clients around that. So with that, again, fairly quick, but I will leave you guys to be working on the ONET assignment. If you have any questions, if it's your first time accessing ONET, there are kind of tutorials in the help area that you can go and try to figure out what, how ONET actually works, how you can go through and kind of decipher different codes and what they all mean, and ideally get to, 3 to 5 potential jobs that your mock client might be interested in pursuing if you're doing career counseling. So if you have any questions, let me know, and if not, we'll meet again on the discussion board.